Yes, you recording?
Yes.
So I guess there are two of us here, as well as, I can't do anybody's names today.
Matthew Pruitt, Employee
Thank
Technology
you.
Services Director.
Alexandra Sheeks.
HO Recruitment Coordinator.
Be something. All right. And what we're going to focus on today, I think, is the data in this wonderful package that was prepared for us.
Yes.
With all kinds of information.
What we were planning is we would speak to we split up the research, and so we would each speak
Oh, okay.
to the data we provided.
That is cool.
Okay, we'll start and I'll go second. Now we'll save the best for last, but I think her data is the most compelling out of the stuff that we provided.
All right, so that's a wonderful plan. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. So I can get started. This will probably be towards the end of your packet. It's the salary commission data information regarding their average packet page number, as well as the average length of the Bothell's council. As you can see here, I took the last 10, so that's 3 to 4 months. These are all obviously on our website as well. I've averaged it out. For the Bothell council packet page count, it averaged to 140 or 155 pages. And then for average council meeting length, it was about 2 hours and 8 minutes.
Can I ask a question? I couldn't
Sure.
figure out what the numbers meant, like number 1, May 21, 2024. I can
Yes.
do with that. Then it says 150 to 110.
Yes, it just means
Is that an hour, 50 minutes?
yeah, okay.
Yeah. What's the 110? Oh, that's how many minutes?
How many
Oh,
minutes?
that's-
Sorry, yeah. So
Gotcha,
I was converting to minutes because I was
Got it.
calculating, yes.
Got it.
I should have been more clear.
I got it.
Yeah, so any questions with those 2 data points? Okay, perfect, yeah, of course.
They seem longer.
Yeah.
You watch them.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm assuming these are kind of like this is kind of the whole thing, including if there's any recess?
Yes, yeah, I believe so. This is actually capturing from the beginning of this year, so it's a pretty good snapshot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. The second part, I apologize, I forgot to print out the compensation guidelines from the Equity Office of Equity Washington State, but I do have a summary for you all. I do have one for myself, but you guys can share it if you guys want, or it is online, so I can give it to you, Rosemary.
It's all right. We can,
Okay.
if you can after the meeting send us the link.
Yeah. Yep, it's,
Was it email in the email from yesterday?
yeah.
You should
Or
already
in
have
the
it.
email.
Yeah.
I now have to go look for it.
No worries.
We can
Because
send
I
it.
forgot about the Bothell email address.
We can resend it so it's up at the top of your.
It's all right. I can find it.
Alrighty.
Now I remember to look at it.
Yeah, no worries. So this was actually really fascinating to read. It is quite long, so thank you, Lauren, for sharing it for us. Essentially, it's just to remove barriers, when participation in government actions. And actually, research that you've done, Alexandra, kind of echoes what this is guidelining, mainly in terms of including those who have lived experience within the community, those who are low income, and just focusing more on, community members and their expertise within, this realm. So, things I kind of want to point out is they mentioned here tracking demographic and physical information, which I don't know if we do, but this includes not anything personally identifying, but it includes when they participated within the group, their race, ethnicity, income, and county. That was kind of fascinating to learn. Income verification, I think one of our cities, I think it was Bothell, Edmonds, has a stipend for those who are qualified for low income, and also a recommendation that this guideline provides. So it's interesting to see that it's putting into effect that's near us. Another thing I mentioned is transportation and loading up technology equipment if that's needed within this role of a council member. and also financial reimbursement for like any travel, lodging, or mileage, as well as child and adult care. So that's just a brief summary of it. There's a lot in there, so I may take long to cover it all, but yes, the link is shared and I'll reshare it, send the
It's all right, I can find it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's kind of the gist of it, and just by seeing what Alexandra did, it very much echoes what's on here. So we have nearby cities who already do what
Yes,
they
it was,
represent.
I just scanned enough, it was Kirkland who.
Was it
had
Kirkland? Okay.
a- yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, of course. That's the limit of my research.
Who's next?
I can go. So I talked to a couple cities. I was not successful getting any answers from the city of Redmond about what happened to their process when the council essentially disbanded the salary commission. I did see that they are actually starting the salary commission again this year, so they haven't abandoned it as an approach. They just abandoned it that 1 year, which is interesting. So they're going to start over with all new members and try again, I guess, would be.
They didn't create new rules for it, as far as you know.
As far as I know, I don't see anything
They just didn't like the people. Or the timing.
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't able really to dig into that much with them. I wasn't able to get somebody to call me back from their office, and my understanding was that the director was on vacation. The other city that I did get some information on is the city of Edmonds. Very similar circumstance, kind of to the city of Edmonds. I mean, the city of Redmond, in the sense of they had a salary commission and they disbanded that group. And they had conversations about we're not adequately looking into DEI and things of that nature. And they had long discussions at the council level about that. And then they got a new salary commission together and they did some work in 2023 for salaries in 2024 and 2025. They actually present a case that the traditional, you'll see a lot in this that sort of like looks like the stuff that I gave you yesterday. They use, CPI and they look at 50 to 150 in the region, and they've historically done that in the past. They also make an argument that making any substantial changes outside of what has been traditionally done, there's no evidence that it will actually do anything to help with DEI, so they're going to stick with the traditional route. That's
Because it's been working so well.
that.
I'm sorry, it was my editorial comment.
Sure. They did, I believe, they were one of the cities that did attach an opportunity for a council member to make more money or to receive a higher stipend if they qualified and can show that they were within the poverty level.
Yeah, they're in low income.
Right. They did not attach that to anything. They just basically said that the council member would have to show evidence. Whereas in the next city that I looked at, the city of Kirkland, they did have something. Where is it? Right here.
Right.
So Kirkland's resolution did a number of things. They didn't. The one thing that Kirkland had that was different is they had a DEI plan that actually, where the council put in the DEI roadmap, we want to look at access to elected offices. So the commission basically was following the DEI roadmap. I don't know if they had, I don't know if they could force them to do it or if they were required to do it. I don't think that's possible, but they did. And they made a number of changes that were not maybe as high as someone like the city of Redmond, but were some increases for sure. In regards to salary, they moved the mayor from 1843 to 4,000. In regards to council members, they moved them from $14.47 per month to $3,200 a month. They allowed city council members to enroll into employee-only or family-only medical, dental, and vision benefits. They are not requiring, they used to do this, but they used to require anybody that chose the family option to pay the difference between what it was for individual only and family. They no longer do that. So you basically don't have to pay more if you have a family of 4. They included an ORCA card, transportation allowance of $270, and then increased it to $282 in 2024, and by inflation in future years. And then their low-income stipend, I'll just read it to you. A single-tiered low-income monthly stipend for eligible council members and households at or below 80% of the King County median income as determined by the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. So they have a specific tie to something that determines that.
I noticed in Edmonds, they actually do similar, that it's 80% of reported median income from property tax returns for Snohomish County.
Yeah.
So it just at least mirrors, I think, it's 80%.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not tying it to HUD, I think is the main difference there. They're talking to property taxes. Yeah, that's correct. And then they also included a $45 per month cell phone stipend. Our council members get cell phones. We give them cell phones. We are actually looking at that technology right now and hope to be changing technology where that would not be a need anymore. In other words, they could use online apps such as Microsoft Teams and that on their personal phones. Some of the issue with using personal phones now is that the data gets stored on the phone, and then if there's a public record request, you got to give up your phone or at least the information on it. But through apps that have been designed, the data no longer stays on cell phones. Like if you use Microsoft Teams, it stays with that app, which is kept here at the,
Do you get a second number on the same phone, or do you just the way of petitioning off?
That's the modernization project that we're working on, is that when you call a council member on their phone number, it'll come through to that Microsoft Teams app. Same for employees. We haven't not implemented that yet, but we're going down that road right now.
But it'll be like a separate number, so it's not like their public number, their friends and family. Okay.
Yeah. So when you call a council member's number, it'll ring on their personal phone, but on the Teams app. And then when you call them on their personal number, it'll ring on their.
Yeah, just wondering if if council members' personal phone numbers will be published places as their number.
No.
Okay.
No. And so different approaches there. Kirkland, City of Bothell has a DEI roadmap, and I asked the DEI coordinator about that. Like, did we include anything? We did not, surprisingly, but we did include it for boards and commissions. And there's
not the council.
But not the council. So there is a paragraph in our DEI roadmap.
I bet that was just an oversight.
Yeah, I was here when we did the DEI roadmap. I was actually fairly involved, and I don't remember the discussion.
That's what I mean.
Right.
Just everything. It was too busy, too much going on, thinking of all the other things and not thinking of the council. It
does say, this is what it says: unintended barriers to participation in advisory bodies and boards and commissions often exist for some community members based on their social, cultural, ethnic, and/or historical experiences. Offering compensation to participants of selected processes is one way to decrease barriers to active engagement and participation for those that need to obtain childcare or incur other expenses in order to participate, while also acknowledging the time, energy, and effort in discussing personal experiences that may include painful stories. To support this, the city shall adopt a policy to compensate community members from unprecedented groups who are most likely to not be engaged on a regular, consistent basis in civic life, such as those from lower income communities, people of color, and renters, for providing input from their lived experience. And then there is a 3-year DEI, implementation calendar. And that, I don't know the exact date that that policy is supposed to be done by, but basically there's a work plan and a deadline for that to be done. But I don't believe it's been done yet. So it's not talking about elected officials and council members, but you definitely could make some parallels between what they were saying with boards and commissions and the issues that other communities are dealing with. I heard, also in your packet, I heard back from 4 council members about how many hours they're working. I actually heard back from a 5th, but it was literally as I was walking out the door. But the information was very similar. You can see how the 4 council members responded. One responded 10 to 15 hours, 16 to 22 hours, 7 to 23.25 hours. And then one council member just said it's an average of 20 hours per week.
Per week or per month?
It's per week.
It says per month.
That's incorrect.
It should be per week.
Well, what did I ask them specifically?
That's what I was wondering, did it include the council meetings? That's what the 2 things I wondered about.
I'm gonna get the answer to that real
It
quick.
seemed low if it was per month.
I'm pretty sure it's per week, and I just made an error. But let me make sure of that. Yeah.
And I have the email up. Do you want to read?
Yeah. What did I ask them?
Yes, actually both. Per week and per month.
Oh, so I asked them for per week, but then I said over the last month, is that
Okay.
more, is that average, is that what you did in the past week? Is that more or less
Okay.
than the other
So
weeks
it's
in the
per
past
week,
month?
but you
Correct.
try to have them focus on the last
Yeah.
month, because that's a more accurate way to ask, way to ask questions.
And none of them was that specific. They just said, they all provided a range. I didn't ask for a range, but they provided one. And they all said it was basically a per week. So that's,
I was going to say, because if you've got 3 meetings a week,
Yeah.
3 meetings a month, sorry,
yeah,
and that's, the meetings average 2 hours, that's already 6 hours.
Yeah.
You've got taken up with
Yeah.
just being in the meeting, not to
Yeah.
mention that 268-page packet.
correct. And the average of all of them submitted was like 15 to 16. And the average range was 11 hours to 20 hours. Some of them were very specific. One of them provided me a chart, which they're obviously tracking it.
You come out of some jobs, you have to track.
Yeah.
I've gotten the habit.
Yeah, and some of them, it was just this is about what it is. Yeah.
All of these were council members. Were any of these the mayor or deputy mayor?
Yes, the mayor was council member 2. The deputy mayor did not respond. And the 5th council member that I told you I got right as I was walking out the door said 15 hours. So it's right in line with what others said.
We go to all kinds of meetings outside of Bothell, don't they? Watch the council session meetings sometimes. You've got to schlep to the meeting sometimes, because they're interested in some of them.
And I think that was all my research. Am I
Thank
missing
you.
anything, Hank?
This is fabulous.
Nope, you're good.
Okay.
Okay. Going up. So I wanted to start with just talking about compensation in general, because that's where we are kind of approaching this project from, since we do compensation consulting. And what we often talk with our clients about is that compensation is a price signal and it involves a goal. And so we often try to have discussions with usually city or county or public agency management about what are your goals? What is your philosophy for compensation? It's a little different in this context, because with employers, we're talking about competition. We're talking about drawing people in, not just within the city limits, but from all over, looking for the best qualified candidate for a job. And so that being said, we do approach this from a compensation philosophy as well. And I think, the original idea, and I think what's reflected in a lot of these ordinances and municipal codes is that the idea of the council position being an honorarium or a stipend. It's a public service that you do as a voluntary role, as a service to your community. So I think that's just kind of, I think the broader discussion to keep in mind as we kind of sift through all of the data is where are we going to, what's the goal, and then once we determine what that goal is determining how we measure that. How do we know that goal has been achieved? So just throwing that out there is kind of the broad look at why we're doing this and what we're driving towards before we get into all of the data and sift through that. So that being said, I started off with providing, I'm going to look at this teeny tiny Excel spreadsheet first. And so we started looking at the comparable jurisdictions. And in the past, the city has used a number of cities that have kind of carried over from bargaining, from compensation studies, which are often selected based on population, evaluation, and all those things. And as we discussed in the last meeting, many of those cities are strong mayor cities. So like you saw in the Edmonds example, the mayor is making a full-time salary because that position is a full-time position. So we looked at cities that are strictly council manager cities that fall within a population of 50% below Bothell to 100% above, and using kind of those similar parameters that we would use when selecting an employer comparable. We also looked at the 2024 total budget, so that's not just operating, but it's also capital expenditures. And these were all that showed up. And I actually went back and just checking them again. Richland is actually higher budget-wise, but we included it nonetheless because this was all that came up as far as the parameters for council manager cities. We did use cities across the states. That's why we do have Moses Lake, Richmond, Longview, and Olympia are all outside of the Puget Sound region, obviously. As you look through those cities there, you'll see that they say 12% RPP adjustment, or 6% RPP adjustment, or 9%. What that does is it recognizes that the cost of living in those other areas is less than the Seattle area. And so what we've done is we've used numbers from the Bureau of Economic Analysis to say that recognizing that the value of a dollar is different in those areas, we've converted them to what those would be like if they were here in the Seattle area. So we do this frequently on an employer basis for employees and understanding how their salaries would compare with other ones elsewhere in the state. We did it for these ones too. So what you'll see here then is we included the mayor, the deputy mayor, and the council annual salaries. Those are all, like I said, these are all adjusted for regional price parity or cost of living. And then we looked at that amount per population, just as kind of an interesting measure. I think the city of Woodinville actually did that and came up with an average. And so that average there in your packet does include Bothell. If Bothell is excluded, which we typically would do, it's 1 cent higher for each one. So it's actually 47 cents is the average per population for mayor, 42 for deputy mayor, 36 for council. And so based on that, it shows that Bothell is a little low on a per capita basis. So that's just one way to kind of view that in light of these other comparable cities. Obviously, we wouldn't be comparing that with Seattle or with Spokane. We wouldn't be comparing that necessarily with you know, Clyde Hill or a smaller city. But it's just a way to compare those with this subset of cities that is similar to Bothell. I included a number of notes in there about some additional benefits that those council members receive. Some of them are paid based on the meeting. So in Des Moines, for example, they're paid based on the meetings. We made assumptions about how many meetings we attend per year. Some of them are eligible to participate in city benefits. Some actually receive, you know, payment to contribute to city benefits. Some receive the option to contribute to retirement accounts. We found that most of these cities that are the most similar to Bothell don't provide additional benefits as far as health or stipends for you know, for childcare or anything like that. That those tend to be those other cities that, with the exception of, I guess, Shoreline, or actually not Shoreline, but Edmonds. That wasn't included in this particular comparison. Interestingly, the majority of the cities in this group don't actually have a salary commission. So their salaries are set by ordinance. They are determined with the budget. They might have an annual inflation that goes into effect, but most of them actually don't have a salary commission. Of those that do, one of them is Longview. They meet every other year. Puyallup meets 3 times per year. And then
Salary commission meets 3 times per year?
They meet 3 times per year.
Wow.
I don't know, it's probably just three meetings per year, I imagine. And then Shoreline, they will be holding theirs, they just completed theirs, they'll be holding it in 2026. So just kind of some information across the board there. We've also included the cost of living adjustments. That's consistent with what we've seen with our work. The CPIW for Seattle last year was 4.5%. That's kind of the gold standard for employee salary increases. So we see mostly 4.5% for 2024, but some of that is dependent on budgets, what else the city is doing with their other employees. So that's what those numbers represent.
Can I ask a question? So not realistic, you can answer it, but anybody can answer it who knows. So our city councillors, do they have the option of having reimbursement if they drive to meetings? Do they get a mileage, like a standard mileage rate? It doesn't say it here.
It does Bothell?
Bothell?
No. They do not receive anything for transportation.
They could claim it as a cost, I guess.
Well,
Second.
now,
I don't know how it works for the tax purposes.
they don't get it for coming to meetings. They may get it for going to travel and training. I mean, for going to training for
But I
conferences.
can see why coming to meetings they might not. If you consider it a job, it's a regular commute to a job.
Yeah,
Classified like that, but I just wondered whether, because that's a big deal.
yeah.
The only one of these comparables that had that was Richland, and I believe they cited a specific situation where, because of the nature of the geography there, they had to travel pretty far for certain council duties because it's more rural and spread out. So
It's not more the regular meetings of the council.
right.
It's more the other things that they
Right.
do around. But are you going to check into that?
Yep, I have
You know, it was, I think,
I wrote a note.
Kind of to level set the benefits that council members are eligible for, if I remember correctly from last time, was can put their money into a retirement plan.
Yeah, the only benefit they have outside of compensation, the only benefit they have outside of salary is they can put that money into deferred compensation. We don't match it, but they can do up to 100% because what they make is under the federal requirements of what you can put into a deferred compensation account. And I believe 2 or 3 of them do that.
Why are you getting?
It's not really a benefit. I mean, it's just another place for them to put their money.
You know, it's a retirement benefit, so at least
Yeah.
just in terms of like,
Yeah.
It's a way of sort of encouraging.
It is a benefit. I
savings.
shouldn't have said that. It is a benefit. I mean, it gives them.
But yeah, I
another
mean, just kind of looking at these,
Yeah.
you know, like eligible for city benefits and some of those things, it's like, okay, so they don't have like a full city employee benefit package, but they do at least have one benefit besides salary.
Yeah,
The more you think about this, the more you realize how inaccessible these, let alone campaigning, even when you have a council job, how inaccessible it would be for lots of people in hourly rate jobs and low income folks, just because of, there's a whole lot of hidden costs in the work, I think.
I think that, you know, admittedly, like a 5 to 10 hour a week obligation, most people can kind of stretch into, you know, that's taking your kid to sports games or something like that is usually 5 to 10 hours a week for a parent. But then once you get into 15 to 20 hours a week, then it's harder to hold down a different part-time job, things like that, so. Yeah,
You just think about reliable transportation and erratic hours and cell phone net you can afford to use a lot. And you sort of go down the list of things that you think about. It really adds up.
So, moving on from that one, I've also included just some population information that was requested. We went back to 2010 to get that information, and as you can see, generally, there's been just little kind of wiggles in population here and there, except in Bothell in 2013 was when that annexation happened. I believe another annexation happened in Sammamish in about 2016. So those two, by and large, were the largest cumulative population changes over that 13-year period, where in Bothell and Sammamish both increased by almost 50%. Again, I think this kind of ties back into the population-based metrics that we've included, and how that might be, that might be a way to objectively look at the role of a council member based on population of similar cities. There was other demographic information that I know that we talked about at the last meeting. I think we'd probably like a little more clarification about what type of data, because when we got into it, there's a lot of data to mine. So, the best way I found to get at that was through census data related to zip codes. So Bothell has 4 different zip codes that would be included, and then we start getting into the household size, the race, ethnicity, gender, age, how many have children, median incomes, all of those different things which we can find. It's just how much capacity do you have to look at all of that data at once, and what's the best way
and
to
how
do that, and how
relevant,
to use it.
I would ask the question how relevant all of that is to our decisions. I think we all got excited because we all like data, but the question is it really, are some of those variables really important in the decisions and the amount of work? Because we're talking about how much work, how much people should be paid for their work. Does it really make a difference past a certain amount?
yeah, I think I appreciate the breakdown of like pay per population, kind of like how much they get paid to represent each individual person in a way.
It's cool.
And even
That's very cool data.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. I think even looking at these lists of cities is, no offense to all of them, but I think if we pulled demographic data, especially race, age, things like that, we wouldn't find anything super shocking about these. And they may not look exactly like Bothell. I don't know if they'll be truly comparative. So I don't really know if more granular demographic data would be super useful. Yeah, I think it'd be like a nice to know, but I don't know the utility of it in like determining.
Well, given that you have to do some work to do it, that was, I think about how much work city council spend on housing and transportation in a city? Which sidewalks to fix, plus coded and housing? And that's more about growth or about how much empty land you have or how much that is. Sure, eventually it has to slow down in Bothell because there just won't be enough land to keep building. You have to, all the effort that's been spent on housing. So yeah, so maybe hold off on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll think on it if there's something
Yeah.
more specific that I think would be useful, or I'll even think on it of like if these other king cities of Des Moines, Savannah, Shoreline, if those would be relevant.
The argument is almost more relevant in terms of some of those demographics. If we had included in our DEI statement about make sure we had a diverse council, to see what kind of representation you have, but we didn't include that in our DEI statement. Even though maybe we could do a few logical leaps and get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of the reasoning behind that is coming from just seeing Bothell change so much and seeing the population growth is, frankly, I know these aren't all white people. And so kind of looking at our council and saying, okay, you get paid to represent each individual person, but like, how do we represent a changing population? And I think that's a question I have to think on, like how to tie that to some piece of data and evaluation.
No, didn't North Shore for a while have more than half of their students were students of color?
And that's true for you to Bothell.
Yes, it is, but some of those come from outside the city, but North Shore, yeah. Yes, so.
I appreciate this for now. I'll definitely think on
If you
it.
think of something good, just let us all know and ask for it because it's important.
Yeah, I'll shoot off an
It's
email.
important if we think we're going to use it.
Otherwise, I think this is a really helpful breakdown, especially the percentage growth changes and seeing when that happened.
I didn't realize that anything was 13, 14. It was earlier. So anything else?
So the other thing that was kind of my part was to talk with the city of Woodinville. They are obviously smaller than Bothell, but they are the neighbor, and I know that they had recently gone through their first salary commission. This is a new process for them, and so they actually have a statement in their code that basically just says the salary commission shall seek to ensure that salaries allow equitable access to elected positions by all citizens of the city, regardless of socioeconomic status, while avoiding salaries disproportionate to the functions of council members and mayor or excessive in light of the city's stipend budget.
What page are you on?
So that is in this, it's in this.
In the Woodinville? Oh,
This is the code. It's not in the agenda packet, but it's in the code.
Okay.
I found, and I went to Woodinville primarily for my familiarity with it, but also because they had just gone through this process. They had a very detailed staff report of all of the different things that they looked at. And I spoke with the finance director there that led that effort. And so he said, well, we have it in our code to do that. So the issue was, how do we get about measuring that? And where they landed is looking at the area median income, which I think Arch Affordable Housing keeps track of that data. That data is out there. They landed on 100% of the area median income for an hourly amount. They made the assumption that a council member would be spending 20 hours a month doing council duties. And they said that the challenge in that was that when you ask council members, well, how many hours a month are you spending doing your council duties? Nobody wants to look like they're not spending very much time. So not that they were accusing anybody of inflating their hours, but they were trying to get at it at an objective standpoint. Okay, we have this many hours we have this many meetings per month, and, just like we've done here, looking at how many hours we spend on average at meetings, or packets are this long, they might have other meetings. So that's where they arrived at, was 20 hours a month times the hourly AMI amount. And then it was a little more for the mayor for his ceremonial duties. So anyway, that's why I included that. I think they went through a very kind of detailed process, and all the things that they considered were very familiar to these other cities and what they considered, and included a lot of those discussions within their staff reports. So.
What hours estimated per month? I forgot, was it 15 to 20 a month? What did hours estimate them were? No, that was per week. I was trying, you said they estimated 20 hours a
20
month,
hours
but
per
hours was per week.
Yeah.
I just can't find my piece of, there it is.
Yeah, they're saying they work
The
on average about 15, 16 hours a month.
A week, which is
Woodinville's quite a bit smaller, so different dynamics.
Maybe,
there.
yeah. Yeah, the one thing I found interesting is that the data from our 5 council members was somewhat consistent. Like that, so that was, but I gathered, yeah. I don't have any way to gauge whether they're inflating it or not.
they do seem to be an engaged bunch.
I would say that's correct. I would say there's noticeably a difference in the council members actively participating in regional meetings than there was maybe 7 years ago when I joined.
I mean, there's much more participation now.
Yeah. But when I started working at the city, I would say there were 2 or 3 really busy council members. Now it's pretty apparent that it's they're all pretty engaged.
And
So
some
that
of them
is a difference.
And some of them go to out-of-state meetings too.
Yeah.
I see them posting about it sometimes.
Yeah, and the one individual that was the lowest, I wasn't surprised by that because he's more involved in his work. There's a lot of travel with his work. So it wasn't, none of them said anything that was overly shocking.
So and I think I'm just lost in the packets, but what was the salary that was determined by this commission? It's not in the chapter, like this is the old one, correct?
Yes, so I believe what they ended up with was about 1,000 a month. I know the increase was somewhere, it was like 67% increase because they hadn't changed it since 2000. So, so I think it was about 1,000 a month where they came up with.
Near a retired fire.
How many of them are retired?
No, I'm just saying, but there isn't near a retired fireman.
Yes.
So he gets a good, he should be probably paid more, but he gets a good retirement income, good pension, because that's those jobs are designed for good reason. But not everybody can be a retired fireman.
And that's kind of some of the goals of engagement, is so that it's not just you wait till you're retired and finally have time to be involved in your community.
So the last ordinance passed by Woodinville was on May 7th, 2024. And it's $400 per month plus an additional $100 a month for serving as mayor. $600 per month. Okay, that doesn't make any sense.
So isn't he, no, I saw, those numbers are in one of these documents, I think.
Yeah,
They're remarkably low.
It was, previously it was 600 a month. And then for council members and then 700 for the mayor.
Let me go in and get the review of all the documents.
yeah.
Yeah, there's something of salary adjusted for inflation on page 17 about a $600 monthly salary in 2000 for 2023. So I think that was them trying to come up with the gap that they've created and
Yeah, I think they've done
Not
more work
adjusting?
since that.
Yeah,
Literally on
yeah,
the
this is, I
website.
think this is, I think that, yeah.
That's not unusual. Codes don't often get updated in real time.
no, I think that would be interesting if they're kind of at a fourth of the time committed to Bothell, just kind of using that as like a, seeing what they adjusted to where they're at.
They just have, did they have trouble getting people to run for those positions?
For city council,
They have some young bucks on Bothell City
Yes.
Council, I think.
Well, we do too.
Yeah, yeah.
But for the young, it'd go to Kenmore, the high school student.
I only know because I grocery shop in Woodinville, and they seem to be just as busy with council elections as we do here in Bothell, but I don't really know the answer to that.
And we didn't, not all our races were contested last time around.
No.
So we have to think about, that's all the data, right? Well, I didn't mean to say it as that's all the data. I mean,
That's the data,
magnificent
yes.
amount of data that I'm sure we really need to digest a little more. So we also need to think about, you and I, with some help, need to think about what would we want our approach to be, what would we want our metrics to be, how do we think about this? Because there's all kinds of, maybe what we need, maybe what I need is a summary of the particular variables. So there's people get a stipend sometimes, get a standard rate. They also, you know, in Kirkland, they add it on. So they add it on for low income, for other kinds of things. So what are all those options that we should take? I could probably do it myself for my own, but it wouldn't take more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably do it. We could probably.
I don't
create
know.
it now. We could probably create that now if we wanted to. 10 minutes, because there's two ways to think about it. One is that you pay people enough that you don't worry about all the other variables. And the other is you pay people a reasonable amount, but you do worry about the other variables.
Right.
And I don't know which approach is better. It's easier to manage that you don't have all the other variables. If we did something that some of them do where you have a special stipend for your low income, would that require that would be your office that would have to validate their income? It's not all that hard, I realize.
I think that's more procedure as opposed to something that you guys need to.
No, I
think
know it.
about,
I was just trying
but
to
yes,
figure out.
probably. That's what that would.
I would assume it would be HR. I mean, I'm not worried about the fact that you might have to do half an hour's work extra, but I'm just sort of trying to think it through how it would work.
Yeah.
You know, you haven't asked me to do this, but if I were writing a staff report, I mean, there'd be some basic questions. Questions would be, these are the current salaries. Do you want to raise or decrease them? That would be question one. Question two would be, at present time, city council does not receive any health benefits. Do you want to consider providing health benefits? The third question is do you want to change how they have their deferred compensation? And I think the fourth question is, do you want to consider other benefits? And the other benefits would be.
Hi, everyone.
Hello?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So sorry I'm late. I completely did not even have this on my calendar, but my internal clock was screaming at me saying, I feel like I'm missing something. And I emailed Hey, and thank God I'm able to join. Better late than never. So again, I'm so sorry.
No problem. It happens to all of us. To me more often than it should. So just kind of a synopsis. We sent an email to you. You should have gotten it yesterday. The email considers a packet of data, mostly based upon questions you guys asked 3 weeks ago. And we've been sort of summarizing that information for the commissioners and they've been asking some questions about it. And we're at the point now, like, how do we want to go about thinking about making a decision, I think is what we're talking about. And yeah, but where I was kind of wrapping up, so it's basically salary, benefits, deferred comp, and other stuff, including orca cards.
So you'll find, you'll find the data really interesting. It's kind of dense. They've helped us walking through it. I didn't get mine either because I didn't check into the Bothell email address because that completely stripped my mind. But that and you find some really interesting ways of thinking about compensation.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what we talk about now. How do you can pretty much Bothell pays a standard stipend. Some other cities have thought of adding on other things, like you get an extra stipend if your income is, if you're low income, or to help you pay for a cell phone, or what else was in there?
Childcare.
Health benefits, transportation. So that's a different way of thinking about it. And I would recommend that you read carefully Kirkland's, what they've just done, because they lay it out really clearly. It doesn't mean we're going to want to do that, but they laid that out really clearly. Do you want to add anything?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, we're kind of at the point where we want to determine how to make a decision of what we want to consider. And I think we were discussing of the first question being adjusting salaries, the second question being adding or adjusting any existing benefits. So right now I'm just kind of doing the math of trying to figure out kind of how people's averages on their weekly hours factor out to kind of like hourly rates.
We have an estimate from a number of the council people on how many hours a week, it's a week, not a month, they worked, which is what we're talking about. That's one of the
Okay. I'm going to try getting into that email so I can pull up the data on my end.
Okay. I'm going to say while you're both waiting is that I did a very non-random sample of people I came across in the last 3 weeks and told them what the city councillors made here and said what they thought. Now this is people who look like my demographic, but people were shocked at how low the compensation is when you started describing the amount of work. So it suggested a minimum of twice as much or more, but that might. I was surprised because these were not all of the same political persuasion.
Yeah, I think it definitely sounds really low, and like kind of when you say it, when you talk about what the mayor makes compared to what anybody else makes. But I do think that it's important to kind of remember that there is like a service aspect to it, and that we're trying to kind of meet people where they're at, so that serving and making that sacrifice to serve is as minimally burdensome as possible. Yeah, so I think that I'm a little bit torn, but like from my math, it looks like if we're kind of doing, if it's $1,300 a month for council members in Bothell, depending on how much they work, that could factor out to like $16.25 an hour up to $20 an hour. So it's close to minimum wage. If we look at like the community compensation guidelines from Office of Equity, they're like one-time engagement for like less than an hour. So just if we took that as like an hourly rate, it's about $25 per participant. If it's ongoing, it's about $45 an hour for participants. So I feel like I want salaries to get closer to like their one-time engagement of like 1 hour being $25. I don't know how the math works out on that. I would like to see some increase in the salary, but I am also interested in kind of adding a benefit or two, and not just going super high on the salary.
No, I agree with that, and I also don't think politically it's a good idea necessarily to need a bigger jump.
Yeah, I think that what we've seen with backlash when there is a huge jump is it seems that the comparable list of cities aren't necessarily ahead of the curve.
No, I would agree with that. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I don't think we
Right.
need to get ahead of the curve,
No,
or else we're gonna end up with a proposal like Kirkland or Redmond or Edmonds that got dismissed.
Redmond.
Yeah.
No, just because I actually think they ought to get paid that amount doesn't mean I would want to approve that for this round.
Yeah.
They're different things.
Yeah.
But I am. Well, do we want to brainstorm a little bit about if we added some benefits? Are there any ones in particular that we think are important?
Yeah, I think it's the childcare stipend that was included in one of these was interesting, that it was just 1,000.
That was Kirkland, wasn't it? Kirkland had the big list of extras.
Yeah.
Do we have the average age of all of the workers?
Of all the city council members?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
No.
Okay.
It's quite varied.
From what I know, there are at least 2 with children under like 15.
Okay.
So that would be a childcare.
Yeah.
At least 2. I'm not 100% sure on a few members. Yeah, I'm interested in a childcare stipend, but the $1,000 without data, like, it seems almost like an arbitrary number. When it's not the majority of the council, that's parents with young children. I don't know if that's the driving one. I would look at a low income stipend as like the priority, I think, for me, in terms of any additional benefits, and then transportation.
The low income benefits, are there specific ones that are tied to low income? Like, for example, like I think you guys mentioned cell phone, transportation. Would that fall under particularly the low income bracket? Or is it like, are all of these benefits like childcare, cell phone, transportation, for example, are they all considered fringe benefits? I guess my question.
What we were talking about was a specific stipend, like Kirkland has $1,000 a month for households. Varies. No, so it's a rate that varies. It is a stipend that varies according to how low your household income is, how low or high your household income is. This is separate from the other benefits suggested, like cell phone and other things. They were not tied to household income.
Okay, and so this low income stipend, do worker or like the council members have freedom to do whatever they will with that stipend? Okay, so knowing that, then yes, I agree with you that I would rather give them a higher stipend. And if, say, right, like you said there's two people who might need childcare, whereas the others might not, then that gives them the flexibility that works for each individual member. So I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, that's really
Of course, part of that, if we add some of these on, is it's not only thinking about the current council, it's thinking about who might be willing to run the future council. Part of the hope, I think, it would be if not only would we reimburse these people fairly, but we might get a more diverse council down the road.
So when I was in benefits, the goal of having employee benefits is to, one, retain your employees, and then two, to bring more talent into your company. And so, Rosemary, what I just heard is exactly kind of like that mindset, but within city council, where we want them to come back or do more with their time and their effort. And so I keep thinking that either focusing more on like just the stipend really gives them that flexibility. I think for me personally, I would appreciate that more than being forced into, oh, I only have this much for this bucket and this much for that bucket.
Yeah, I really agree with that.
That means that we seem to be saying that of all the add-on extras, the one that would be the top of our list would be the low-income stipend.
Yeah. So, I think we agree that the low-income stipend would be a benefit we'd be interested in adding. And then kind of the flip side of that is how to also compensate folks that aren't eligible for a low-income benefit, which I think would mean that we should consider adjustment to the salary beyond a cost of living adjustment. And I think we need to determine what would be appropriate to do so. Unless there are any other benefits that y'all feel really strongly need to get added. Or if we want to talk about adjusting the deferred compensation, which is the retirement benefit, vaguely worded retirement benefit. Yes.
I did some math for you, and I'm going to double check it because I'm not the person who should be doing math for you. But you talked about earlier about the state commission and how you'd like to see salaries closer to $25 an hour, which we all understand. That's different depending on the council member, So I just took them at their word, and I took the average of 16 hours a week. And what I got is that would raise council salaries from $15,600 to $20,800. I'm not. I don't have information. I'm just.
You cut out a little bit on my end. So was that 15,600 to 20,800? Okay, thank you.
And for your information, that's a 33.33% increase.
Yeah.
So the other thing I was thinking about, that is that the number that we like, which is the salary to population. what I don't know what would, I mean, to come to an increased number of different ways to play with that and to think about how would we make that in line with some of the other cities, or I don't know how to quite way through that, but that is the other way I've been trying to think about.
Yeah.
So I actually did that calculation as well, and
I
so.
guess you might have.
Yes, so if the council member, if we increased it to the 36 cents per capita, essentially, the annual amount would be 17,805. Or a monthly amount of 1484, which would be a 14% increase for council members. For the deputy mayor, it would increase to 20,704 annually, 1732 per month, which would be a 22% increase. And then for the mayor, it would be 23,492 with an annually, monthly would be 1958, and then that would be 28% increase. And that's just taking the average per capita salary and then multiplying it by Bothell's population.
Will you reiterate the total salaries for council?
Yes, so for council, it would be 17,805 fully. Deputy mayor, 27,84. Yeah, 20,784. For mayor, it would be 23,452. And again, for that would reflect the population. So that would reflect the average salary per capita for the 9 comparable cities that we selected for data.
Okay.
The average, the median.
The average, yeah.
What you were doing the 25 now?
I just came up with a salary council number, and I came up with 20,800. And that's just if you did the $25 that their average is 16 hours per week is correct.
Okay.
So
That's a reasonable one. Both of these are reasonable ways of doing it, thinking about it.
So it's not exactly, but I told you that was about 32%. For council members, Alexandra's calculation, it's not half, but it's about half.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's up 33%. It's in the teens.
Both of those are about it, and we also want to think about the low income stipend, do we?
Yeah, the low income, everyone kind of agreed with the AMI. One used the HUD. I think those are separate decisions as split king. Do we use and then do we use HUD from low income?
And nobody might qualify for that, but that's really not the point.
Yeah, it's.
That's really not qualify, but that's not really the point. You're trying to partly give people opportunity in the future.
Yeah, I think there. Let me see if I can write down my questions here. A few questions on low income. Use King County AMI. We use HUD. And then single step or generic steps that one cities use just 80% AMI, one of these cities uses steps of like 30% AMI, you're eligible for this amount, 50%, you're eligible for this amount, 80%, you're eligible for this amount.
Can I share one thought about that?
Yeah.
Between HUD and King County, we have council members that are very sensitive to the fact that this city encompasses 2 counties.
Yeah.
The HUD calculation, I don't know really the difference between the two, but nationwide county, whereas the King County is.
Politically, the HUD one is better. Okay. Let's think about that.
I think this digital packet has some good information considered as part of that. Well, is this commission to determine how that's played out, but the challenges that having people report income, what kind of information are they reporting, what level, because obviously when there are, when people are reporting incomes for tax purposes, there are loopholes that are things that where someone who is earning a normal salary can actually appear to have a lower salary, for example. And I'm not sure what would actually come into play, but what becomes public record as well. And I'm not sure what is exempt from that sort of thing, but they're all things to think about, in terms of if that program would become available. And I don't believe that any of these have been around enough to actually see the results of them yet, but it would be interesting to see if these cities that have put this in, if they actually do see changes because of that. So, just some other things.
Do we know people in Kirkland who could ask about that? This just passed, didn't it?
Yeah, none of them have been in for a link.
I just wondered about what their rationale was and when they did that, what they know something we don't know.
Yeah, it seemed to be an issue with Woodinville that I didn't see come up in Kirkland, but I don't know.
Well, I thought, when I read that statement, I thought that was somebody trying to argue against it, but it doesn't mean there's not some legitimate reasons, but it seemed like a statement saying we don't really like this idea. Yeah, it's obviously it's his problem.
Yeah.
It becomes your problem.
The public records question I can answer really easily. I can't answer it right now, but I know you can.
Yeah. But also how that's, what the basis of the data is for an individual. Yeah, I used to help people with their taxes sometimes, so I'll do that.
Yeah. No, that kind of.
On the other hand,
when I was doing like financial aid at one point, because my dad had pulled that like 25K out of his retirement to pay for our house.
Yeah.
And I'm doing financial aid. They're like, you just have 25K in the bank and that's free money. We had to go through appeals processes, so that's another thing.
But you can't fix the ridiculous US tax system. Bothell City Council Salary Commission cannot fix that.
Can't fix that.
Sometimes you have to take the problems.
I don't know how relevant, or maybe relevant, but from the Office of Equity Community Compensation Guidelines, they do have examples of verification methods. I can read for you guys. Yeah, so the first one says categorical eligibility for community members currently receiving public assistance in Washington State. The second one is pay stubs last 1 to 3 months. 2. Previous year's tax return, employer statement, other, and self-attestation.
I would add attorneys to put it in the document like that.
You would think. Well, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Great.
What was the equity compensation guidelines?
It's on page 19.
feels like we have to go home and read some more and really think through. We've sort of come up with some ideas, but I don't know, does any of the staff, do you have anything else we should know?
I think Alexander did well. I think you have good data. I think what I will do for you before the next time you meet is I'll take Hayes' minutes, summarize the conversation with it, outline the various options you talked about. And so it sounds to me like the next meeting wouldn't be the decision meeting, it would be
The second.
right. So it'd be deliberation of what we talked about today and to make final decisions as regards to what does come to the public.
And if there's any way you could do that document to give us 4 or 5 days of reading time, or 4 or 5 days of reading for it and then reading time. So
Yeah.
I realize that might be asking too much, but.
If we could, for 2 weeks from now, backpacking a new map. It is successful. Ever have in their history. So I don't know. I don't 6 out of 2, so I don't. That's what we'll start at. So it might not be that hot up there. I don't know. If you moved it, if you kept that meeting, I think what I would ask is either you move that meeting up or back a week to July. If you gave us July, that we could give you 5 or 6 days of reading time.
If we move it to July, it pushes us to 4th of July, which then I'm assuming nobody's working, so we'd have to push that up to the following week, which is the week of July 8th. And if we're keeping it on Thursdays, it would be July 11th. And from my end, I'm okay with either, whether if we do it earlier, which would be next. What's that?
I was making a joke for the parade on the 4th.
Just have this meeting for breakfast. My concern about estimating from now to out is that we're going to push ourselves closer to the end period for this, that if our next deliberation period is a month from now. So I'm not totally sure. I'm not against moving it to a different day in that week of the 4th.
When was it? Was it August, the end of August was our?
August 23rd?
Yep.
Yep. We would have time, but not if anything goes
So
wrong.
that's 6
because last time where something went wrong and we had to reschedule.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also that we could.
You're there the 4th and the 11th?
That doesn't mean that we can't get you a staff report.
Well, the other?
No, I'm there the 4th. I'm there until the 10th.
Yeah, I mean, the other possibility is we would meet again sooner and we wouldn't ask for a staff report, but we've all had time. This is a possibility. We've had time to read it up.
Yeah.
That might
Could be a halfway point of just the deliberation, come up with more specific questions.
what I'm trying to figure out what day that might be, but that would be a possibility. And we just, so we could really talk more about the data that we have. Because I certainly need to read it again.
Yeah, so we could keep our existing schedule of the 27th, not expecting a staff report, and then a staff report at the existing 11th, like July 11th. And that way kind of this interim is just make sure we're staying on top of it, come up with further questions, and then have a meeting, become more prepared.
So the 27th, you can make it? Can folks make the 27th?
Yeah, I can make it. I might have to do a virtual one again,
Right.
but I can make it.
You're in a glorious big screen. It looks quite magnificent.
Okay.
How'd that,
That's okay. So let's make it Thursday, the 27th.
Would you two be all right with that? It sounds like it would be mostly deliberations. I will not be here. Okay. And then-
But that way we can work our way through the data some more.
Yeah.
So you're going to be out, when are you be out?
I'm out to the 10th, the 26th.
We're talking about June 26th. So you're gone before then?
Yeah, but that's okay.
All right.
I think. Hey,
Yeah, no, I think the June 27th, somewhere around here, and I promise I'll get this mail.
Send the email. All the emails. I'll ensure that.
Yes, email us or text us or something. That would be very helpful. I'm glad you remembered it.
Me too.
All right.
All right.
Else? Happy to adjourn?
Yes.
All right. On the 27th. Have fun backpacking.
Thank you.
Have fun. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
I don't know New Mexico.
New Mexico very well. I
Yeah,
don't
but I